Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says no blanket not given for surveillance. What is surveillance? Surveillance is nothing but observation or monitoring of a particular person. So it is not just observation, but it is about scrutiny of his behavior, speech, and actions. How? By using certain surveillance tools. What are these surveillance tools? This can be surveillance cameras, it can be GPS tracking, or it can also be internet surveillance as well. So this article here on a broader picture is speaking about surveillance conducted by the government of India when it comes to its individuals as well as its people. What are we looking at? We are looking at surveillance laws when it comes to India. What are the primary surveillance laws? When it comes to India, the laws governing surveillance are the Indian Telegraph Act of 1885. Basically, this deals with interception of the calls. What are these calls? Let's say, for example, if you're calling another person via the voice, that is where your calls can be recorded, it can be scrutinized, and these scrutinization, if it has something illegal in nature, the government can intercept such calls. So which law provides that? It is the Indian Telegraph Act of 1885. When it comes to the data, let's say for example you're using your internet, or you are sending your email, or you're using social media, or you're threatening someone who is on the online platform. For this particular information, for the scrutinization of the activities online where data steps into picture, what we have is the Information Technology Act of 2000. So this Information Technology Act of 2000 basically deals with the interception of the data by the government of India with respect to its citizens and all individuals present in India. Under both laws, only the government under certain circumstances which is permitted to conduct surveillance, and it is not the private actors, individuals, companies or organizations. So both these laws clearly say that it is the power that is given to the government to conduct such interception or surveillance with respect to its people in India. How about hacking? Or what if some data is stolen or there is data theft in that particular case, if it is done by a private organization or by a private individual which is not a government agency? In such a scenario, those companies or individual can be penalized according to the IT Act and the Indian Penal Code. So what are we looking at? We are looking at surveillance laws in India. But something else happened in the year 1996. What happened? Back in the year 1996, the Supreme Court realized that this system of Indian Telegraph Act was not transparent. It was opaque. There was lack of accountability when it comes to the Indian Telegraph Act, and the interception did not have proper structure, guidelines and rules. This is where the Supreme Court provided what is called as the procedural guidelines. So this is where the government came up with what is called as the codified rules in 2007 with respect to the Indian Telegraph Act of 1885. Why? That is because there was lot of ambiguity, there was lot of disturbances, there were issues and concerns as to how the Indian Telegraph Act was opaque in nature, which is why the Supreme Court had to step in. It gives certain guidelines. On the basis of these guidelines given by the Supreme Court of India, the government comes up with the rules in the year 2007. This is with respect to Indian Telegraph Act. So what we have to understand is after these rules came into picture, we have one of the interception of communication which can be only issued by the secretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs, which means if the government is intercepting certain calls, the permission will have to be given by the secretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs, both at the central level and also at the state level. Without the permission, if there is interception of the particular voice, it means they are violating some of the rules as prescribed under the Indian Telegraph Act of 1885. A similar precedent was also taken into picture with respect to the Information Technology Act of 2000. What exactly happens? For this, we also require a competitive authority who can issue an order for the interception, monitoring or decryption of a particular information, which is then transmitted, generated across the data, that is use of a computer source. In such a scenario, with respect to the Information Technology Act, Union Home Secretary or state secretaries in charge of the Home Department, again they have to give the permission as well. So we have certain interceptions which can be conducted by the government, but this will require authorization, permission that is given at the secretary level who are present in the Home Department. This is what we have with respect to the surveillance laws. And in the year 2008, India saw one of the devastating attacks on the financial capital of India, which happens to be Mumbai. So in 2008, what we witnessed is Mumbai terrorist attacks. What were the major problem areas? One, there was intelligence failure. Two, we were not able to take care of our coastal region. And three, what we also had is a technological lapse. The first two were addressed. The intelligence was upgraded. Coastal security was also upgraded. What we also wanted to ensure was upgradation of the technological upgradation. So what do we mean by technological upgradation? Here, let's say there are operatives in Pakistan. They have to send the information, which is of course by call or by data. So what we required is a constant vigilant eyes on the internet and also on the data, which is where India felt we had certain problem areas and dearth, and that is why India had to upgrade its technological fields as well. This is where India comes up with certain schemes and programs to make sure that there is public safety and security of tackling crime and terrorism and improvise on the surveillance scheme. One such scheme is what is called as the centralized monitoring system. The other is what is called as the Netra network traffic analysis. Let's try and understand what are these objectives or what are these programs basically looking at. When it comes to this particular program of what is called as the central monitoring system, this was introduced after the Mumbai terrorist attack. This will basically ensure that there is centralization of the data, and from this centralized data, security agencies, law enforcing agencies would be able to take up the data. Let me elaborate this particular procedure for you. So basically, this central monitoring system was designed by the government after 2008 Mumbai attacks to monitor, intercept telephone calls, email messages, and all the communication on the internet. This also used the very fundamentals of the Indian Telegraph Act. What was the Telegraph Act speaking about? In case there is a particular emergency, there is a particular exigency or an urgency where the government has to intercept certain data which can threaten the sovereignty of India, the security of the state, friendly relations with the foreign states, or this can disturb peace and tranquility and public order. That is where, using the aspects of Indian Telegraph Act, what we have is the central monitoring system. So this central monitoring system is nothing but where you will have a centralized mechanism where all the information will be stored. This can be in reference to the telecommunication, this can be in reference to the internet connections, and this data and information can be used by the Indian security agencies as well as law enforcement agencies. Let me simplify this further. We have what is called as the lawful interception. What is this lawful interception? This is where we have the service provider. Who is a service provider? It can be Airtel, it can be Jio, it can be Vodafone Idea, or you can also have other internet service providers. Let's say for example Act, so on and so forth. These are the internet service providers. These internet service providers have what is called as the servers. The minute you send your information, you want to send a particular data from one caller to another caller, this voice is present in the servers of that particular what is called as the service provider. And at the same time, if you're sending the data, it might again be present in the servers of that particular company. So what would ideally happen when permission is given by the Home Secretary earlier before the CMS, then such a company will have to give an information to the legal processing agencies or the security agencies. So what will happen? The data would be stored in all these systems or these servers, and when permission is given by the Home Department, the service providing agency had to deliver the data, or they had to deliver the information that which was prevalent in the system. This was a system that was present before 2008, but after 2008 what we have is called as the ISF, or the interception store and forward service. So all the data that comes to their servers in that particular region, so we have, let's say, regional monitoring centers. It can be in the basis of the southern region, or it can be on the basis of state region. So all the servers that will get the data in that particular service agency will be sent to what is called as the regional monitoring center. As I told you, the regional monitoring center can be categorized on the basis of state, or it can be categorized on the basis of zone as well. The zone can be north, east, west, south as well, or it can be on the basis of states as well. So what exactly happens? All the data that is stored in this particular service provider will automatically go to the regional monitoring centers. So the minute it goes to the regional monitoring centers, it is directly put to the central monitoring system. So all the data will be directly going to the central monitoring system, and from here we have these security agencies and law enforcement agencies who would be in a position to monitor. So what is happening here? In the earlier cases, what we had was the targeted surveillance, but in the present scenario, again lawful interception is happening, but that is via by sending the data that which is provided to the telecom service providers, which is eventually transmitted to the regional offices. From the regional offices, it goes to the central monitoring system, and ultimately the law enforcement agencies or the security agencies would be able to pick up the data according to the central monitoring system. Why is it called a central monitoring system? Because it is present at one single system. They are monitoring what the data is, and this is a system which will help in prevention of any terrorist activity. They constantly keep monitoring, and in case they visualize or see and observe that there is a particular trend which can be a harm to the country, that data is collected via the central monitoring system. Next important program is what is called as the NETRA. What does NETRA stands for? It stands for Network Traffic Analysis. This is one of the software network developed by Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics, which happens to be a defense research and development, that is DRDO laboratory. So this is a system or a software network which constantly monitors the internet. What does it monitor for? Let's say, for example, as there is communication between two individuals, if there is a word called as bomb, or let's say, for example, there is a Twitter status, or there is a Facebook status, or there is an email, or there is generation of tweets, or there are transcripts on the instant messaging platform, or there are forums, or there are internet calls. In all these cases, in case there are certain words like attack or bomb or blast or kill, such will be monitored by this internet network software program. So basically they will constantly monitor the internet, and in case they see that there are these specific words, immediately the system of security intelligence will be activated, and they will constantly keep monitoring as well. Apart from that, whenever terrorist organizations usually conversate, they also have some key terms as well. Let's say, for example, mitai, which also means sweet as well. So if such words which have come from the intelligence agency and it has gone to this particular software and it is fed, it immediately prompts them to take action as well. Why are we discussing all this? That is because in the present scenario, there is one of the petitions that is filed in the Delhi High Court. What is this petition saying? One, it speaks about the central monitoring system. It also speaks about network traffic analysis. It goes on to say, currently we do not have the privacy laws. We have the Puttaswamy judgment, which went on to say that privacy is an ingrained aspect of Article 21 and right to privacy will have to be respected. But what is happening with central monitoring system and the network traffic analysis is that Article 21 is getting violated, right to privacy is getting violated, which means that the government is the only stakeholder. Yes, there are measures and provisions, but this does not have an independent body or an authority which is monitoring whether it is happening within the contours of the law, or there is any escalation, or there is any information which is not to be given but it is unfortunately utilized by these legal security agencies. So what is that they are saying? All that they are saying is, currently we do not have a dedicated privacy law, we do not have a data protection law, we do not have data security laws, and all this might be misused by the executive and the law enforcement agency. And as a result, what they suggest is for a permanent independent oversight body which comprises of judicial and parliamentary representatives. This is the suggestion as given by that particular petition which is filed in the Delhi High Court. To this particular petition, we have the central government, that is the Ministry of Home Affairs in the present scenario, which has given its response. So what has been the center's response? It has gone on to say that all these agencies, the security agencies, they do not have the blanket permission. So what is the blanket permission? That in fact these security agencies have some limitations. They do not always look at these conversations. Only when it is required, only when there is a sense of security threat, that is when these security agencies, law enforcement agencies, will be checking this particular tool, says the central government home ministry. And at the same time, it has also gone on to say, yes, we do respect the privacy. Yes, we do understand that privacy is an important fundamental right as enshrined under the constitution. But what we also have to balance is the security of the country. So there is balance that is required. One side privacy, on the other side the security of the country. So we cannot always give importance to private individuals at the cost of the public at large, says the central government. And at the same time, it has also gone on to say that we already have enough number of safeguards when it comes to this particular mechanism of central monitoring system as well as Netra. They go on to say that if there has to be an interception, it is only on the basis of permission given to the secretaries at the home ministry. They are also having a vigilant eyes, that is by the cabinet secretary at the central level and by the chief secretary at the state level as well. So we already have adequate and effective supervision. So we do not require a new body, says the home ministry, and that has been the response of the central government. So the home ministry has clearly gone on to say that in case there are threats to the country which can emanate from terrorism, radicalization, cross-border terrorism, cyber crime, organized crime, drug cartels, these have to be stopped, these have to be prevented, these are the threats to the country. If these have to be stopped, what we require is the constant monitoring of Netra and the central monitoring system. So you don't have to worry about the safeguard, says the central government. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says beating down critical journalism, creative freedom. This article here is speaking about media clampdown. Do note that these are the perspectives and opinion of the author and it is not our opinion. So this is a disclaimer from our end. What is this article speaking about? It is speaking about media freedom. As we all know, when it comes to the criminal justice system, there is one of the important fundamentals called as bail is the norm, jail is an exception. What do we mean by it? We know for the fact that Article 21 is an important aspect of the fundamental right. It speaks about right to life. It also speaks about right to live with dignity and also with liberty as well. When we are putting a particular person in jail, we are stripping that particular person of living with dignity, and at the same time we are stripping away that particular person from liberty as well. So what this concept of bail is the norm, jail is an exception means that in case there is a particular person who's conducted something which is illegal in nature but it is not heinous in nature, such a person can be given an option of bail by the court of law, is what is this particular wording. What is happening in India in the present scenario? There was a young freelance journalist who was arrested. He was charged with lacking appropriate media credentials, but he was also given bail in the present scenario. So what is happening? He was given the bail, but in most of the other cases in India, bail is becoming an exception, says the author. He takes into picture one of the other journalists called as Siddiqui Kappan. Siddiqui Kappan is a journalist from the state of Kerala. He had gone to Uttar Pradesh because he wanted to cover the Hathras rape case as well. That is to do with a young girl from the Dalit community who was sexually assaulted. In this particular case, because he was covering the Hathras case, there were impositions on him and he was arrested under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. So what we have is two examples where on one side journalist is given the bail, on the other side journalist is not given the bail, but instead he is booked under Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. So this particular idea goes on to say that bail, which has to be the norm, is not being followed by the judiciary in India. The author brings into light another perspective as well. He says, according to the Home Ministry, all those journalists were not able to cover what was happening with respect to the farmer agitation. Only few journalists who were credited and were given permission by the Home Ministry, only such journalists were allowed to cover all the actions and the agitations that was exhibited by the farmer in the Delhi and region around it, which means to say that ideally press freedom, which is an aspect of Article 19 of the Indian Constitution, which also speaks about freedom of speech and expression, is getting violated, says the author. In this particular backdrop, the author goes on to say that Article 19 is getting repeatedly violated. One is by the government, and at the same time, Article 21 of the Indian Constitution is getting violated because it is being stripping away the life and liberty of a person, and this is where one, the government is also part of it and the judiciary is also part of it, says the author in this particular case. In order to overcome this particular issue, in order to say that these actions are not legitimate, the author brings into picture two important landmark judgments. One is in reference to the Gujarat High Court, which was given in the year 2012. The other is in reference to S. Rangarajan versus Jagjeevan Ram case, which happened in the year 1989. First, let us understand what is this Gujarat High Court case all about. There was a sedition case that was filed by the Commissioner of Ahmedabad when it comes to Gujarat. So after the sedition case was filed against the journalist of Times of India, the Gujarat High Court looks into it and the judgment was in favor of the Times of India. What did the Gujarat High Court say? When it comes to media and its freedom, it goes on to say that there is Article 19 which gives the press freedom. So according to it, it is the fourth pillar of the democracy. So all the schemes, the programs, the yojanas of a particular government is shown to the people by the journalists and as well as by the press freedom. So in case just because he is voicing his opinion against the government and the schemes of the government, that does not mean sedition, says the Gujarat High Court in this particular case. So we have to go back to 2012 where Gujarat High Court has clearly said that if there is a journalist, if there is a particular newspaper outlet, if they are commenting against the government, this does not stand. The idea and the front of sedition is the Gujarat High Court judgment, says the author. The next landmark judgment is in reference to the S. Rangarajan versus the Jagjeevan Ram case. We have to go back to the year 1989, which is about the censorship. What exactly happens when it comes to the movies in India? What exactly happens? There is something called as the censor board. The films are first sent to the censor board. They ask for certain cuts, and after all the cuts and changes that are to be introduced by that particular movie and its director, when permission is granted by the censor board, it will be released in the public forum. So this public forum movie is where people would be able to visualize that particular movie. But of late there is a trend that is being created. What is this trend? Let's say for example, there is a certain community or there is a particular caste or there are certain section of the people who are not happy with that particular movie. So what do? They create a ruckus, they create a chaos, and ultimately because a particular section or a community or a caste is not happy about a particular movie, what is asked is that the government will ultimately stop this particular movie from being played out in the public forum. In this particular case of Rangarajan versus Jagjeevan Ram, it has clearly gone on to say that it is for the state, it is for the government to take care of this particular prerogative. The state cannot plead its inability to handle some hostile audience, and the state cannot ignore its fact and give away its responsibility. It is not the movie's responsibility to convince only a certain section of the people. It is not the movie's responsibility to appease every section of the people, but it is the responsibility of the government to make sure that such ideas of movies come into picture. If there is any issue, it is between the censor board and that film director, but once it has got the certification, other agencies, other people, certain sections of the people cannot stop this particular movie out in the public forum, says the Rangarajan versus Jagjeevan Ram case. So ideally, it is the responsibility of the government to handle all the hostile audience problem, and at the same time, it says that Supreme Court declined the embrace of what is called as the doctrine of censorship. So the freedom of expression cannot be suppressed on the account of threat of demonstration or processions or threats of violence, but instead every person, that is movie, if it is being given certification by the censor board, they have every right under Article 19. One is in terms of the freedom of expression, the other is in terms of profession, says this Rangarajan versus the Jagjeevan Ram case. So this article currently goes on to say that there have been examples in India, one in reference to the media freedom where there is excessive executive authority imposing orders for the restriction. This should not be the norm going forward, as it has been established by number of Supreme Court case judgments and various High Court judgments, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about the prisoner's tragedy, a nation's shame. What is this article speaking about? This article is speaking about Perari Valan. Who is Perari Valan? It is said that he was one of the person who was involved in the assassination of the ex-Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi ji. But the criminal justice system is unfortunately taking a lot of delay. It is taking a lot of time as well, and the executive authorities were not able to prove that this is this person who has committed that particular act, or he was involved in that particular act, or they were not able to prove to the court of law that enough evidences were present with respect to the culpability of Perari Valan. Even if it is proved, even if it is criminal conspiracy under IPC, he is already served 30 years in jail as a trial process, and as a result he has done all that he can from his end, and now what he has to be done is released from the system. In fact, Perari Valan has also approached the central government. In fact, he has also approached the state government as well. In fact, in the present scenario, the governor has all the powers to issue pardon as well, but in spite of all these issues, he is still not pardoned because of the executive abdication, which means there is a violation of the constitutional duty, and this is a violation of individual liberty, says this article. So basically, this article is speaking only about the criminal justice system. We have discussed this article in the past 1 month as well in our daily quiz as well as in our daily CNS. So kindly look into it. Now let's look into the next article. This article says PSU playing a role in farm sector will not be sold. We did discuss about the budget, about one of the disinvestment plans proposed by the government of India. The government of India has segregated what is called as the strategic sector, and it has called what is called as the non-strategic sectors. When it comes to the strategic sectors, let's say for example, we have the defense, we have the atomic energy, or we have the railways. Such areas will not be disinvested, which means there will be minimum number of public sector units for its operations, and there will be no disinvestment with respect to the strategic sector, said the finance minister in the budget. And at the same time, there are non-strategic sectors as well. Such non-strategic sectors will be disinvestment, or they will be merged, or it will be privatized, said the finance minister when it comes to budget 2021. It is currently being said that all those public sector firms who are engaged in activities allied to farm sector, such as provision of seeds to the farmers, or procurement or distribution distribution of food for the public distribution system will not be up for sale under the new disinvestment policy announced in the budget. So if they are into the farming support and if they are into helping the farmers, such sectors once again will not be disinvested, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the mains practice question. Lopsided character of surveillance framework in India highlights an urgent need for comprehensive reform. Critically analyze. Next question. Free press is indispensable in a democratic society. Is press freedom and freedom of expression under threat? Substantiate. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review. Give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.